What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner, 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association, and I am the co-host and co-producer of the only online show in the world for dads and fathers that is sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. It's also co-sponsored by Dad Central, Canada's national fatherhood organization. And being part of that collaboration last year, I was part of a team that reached out globally to over 100,000 fathers around the world. So as always, I like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and the solution for someone's problem. And it's Sunday afternoon. Hey, and it's Black Canada Talking Time. For those who know, and for those who don't know, Black Canada Talking is a live online event that provides Black Canadians the opportunity to give their takes and POVs on stories and subjects that are of importance to them. And also, we like to showcase great Black Canadians, and we have a great Black Canadian here. Some of you have seen her with me before, but this is the first time I believe she's been properly on Black Canada Talking, because I was chatting with her last week and she was saying, hey, Janice, do you know anyone And I said, hold on a second. You've never been on Black Canada Talking. So Janice is Janice Bartley. She is the founder of Foodprenuer Lab based in Ontario, and she has over 3 decades of entrepreneurial experience, and she's actively assisted providing access, especially for women, to funding and information, especially when it comes to the food industry. And a lot of people, we nam or we eat our food, but there's a lot of money to be made in the food industry. And Janice is a leading proponent. She's a change maker, especially for BIPOC women when it comes to this. So like to have her for the first time properly on Black Canada Talking, Janice Bartley. Hey, what's going on?
Hi, Dr. Vibe. Thank you for having me. I don't know if I can live up to that introduction, but thank you.
Well, you don't live up, you live above it. You don't live up, you live above it.
All right, I'll take that. I'll take that.
Yeah,
Thank you for
yeah. So
having me.
how are things going?
Things are going very well. I cannot complain. It's an exciting journey. It's still continuous. So yeah, I'm just enjoying it every day and reaping and sowing and reaping and sowing, and yeah, that's pretty much where we're at right now.
Absolutely. For those who don't know about Foodprenuer Lab, how did where did the dream start with Foodprenuer Lab?
So Foodpreneur Lab was birthed from what some people could have said a difficult experience. So I was in the food space with an incubator accelerator for approximately 3 years, and they lost their funding. And so we were laid off December of 2018. And while everyone else was running around panicking, and again, I always say to my entrepreneurial spirit, I decided, okay, I will launch and create Foodpreneur Lab. And it's a classic story where my colleague and I were sitting in a cafe, and typical pull out the napkin. I said, hey, this is what I want to do. And over lentil soup and crackers, I said, I want it to be Foodpreneur, and we weren't sure, and I said Foodpreneur Lab, and that is where it was birthed, that idea. And I think it speaks to a mindset when, the classic phrase is, when you get lemons, you make lemonade. That was my lemonade stand. And I always say this, that was birthed because I was paying attention to my environment.
Right.
Some people just go to their job and they just plug in and they work. But then there's another side of things, and I think I've always been cognizant of my environment. And so because of that, I think that's what enabled me to see not only an opportunity, but an imbalance. More so, the imbalance is what caught my attention. Right. And the entire time I was there, I kept questioning it, and I wasn't seeing anything that was actionable that I could equate to as a solution. or even trying
Mm-hmm.
to address it. So I think that's what really spurred me on to, and don't get me wrong, take a leap of faith, because it wasn't a slam dunk by any stretch. I want to be very clear on that. But I really saw something that there I was able to see the gap, identify the gap, figure out what the solution could or would look like, and took a chance and executed.
Wow.
And like any entrepreneur, or I should say, what entrepreneurship really is about is taking the risk, and the risk is in yourself. The risk is not the business. The risk is believing in yourself that you are the person that can deliver this. Everything else will fall into place. But if you believe, hey, I can either make a better widget, or I can improve on a widget, or create a non-existing widget, then leap. And that's what I did.
Wow. You mentioned before Foodpreneur started, you were involved in the food industry for 3 years, but where did you get your love to get in the food business? Because it's not one of those easy businesses to leap into.
No, it's not. And I'd have to say, my 30 years in entrepreneurship, I was in the hospitality and culinary side. And so, one of the biggest jokes for me, for those who know me, is I don't mind cooking. I don't like cooking.
I know that.
Okay, there's a,
I know that. I know that.
and
I don't.
anybody who really knows me knows that. And people always go, well, how can you be in food and not like to cook? I said, well, there's a difference when people cook the food and make it for you and you enjoy that experience. But to be honest, as a single parent, so those luxuries at that time, I was being very pragmatic. I had to be in the kitchen. I had to prepare. I had to feed the children. That was a
Yeah,
given. But
sure.
it wasn't necessarily my favorite place to be. I always joke I could buy a house without a kitchen in a heartbeat. It's it's just it's my default. Okay.
Oh
But
boy.
having said that, I know my food fairly well, so that's the trade-off.
Right.
Um, being in that space and being and spending time around, at the time we were delivering youth entrepreneurship programs. This is going back into the early late night late no early yeah early 2000s. And being in that space really opened my eyes, because I was surrounded by a lot of great chefs because of what we did, which was training and running a boutique culinary school. And so that is where I got my exposure into kitchen life, what it looked like behind the ambiance and
Yeah,
the theatrical production that you see in front of you,
sure.
from the environment to the plate. And that's what was interesting for me, because I had a newfound respect about the sweat equity and the passion that went into, in a chef's life and his brigade. It's you know the chef is just the head. The
Yeah.
rest of it is his brigade, right? And a lot of people don't realize that, and how precise the execution has to be to deliver great service. And so, seeing all that, I really had a better understanding. And then working with young cooks who wanted to get to the next level of being great chefs and having to send them overseas was really where I was able to connect with younger people, and understand the frustrations of wanting to do something great but not really knowing how to do it.
Right.
And so that has been a common thread throughout my life. And people always joke and say to me, oh, when you do this stuff, did you ever think you're gonna be, mother, father, aunt, mentor, psychoanalyst, psychotherapist? And I always go, yes. I I've always known that. I've always known that, and I've always been in that role. Don't ask me why, but that's the role I'm in, and I respect it, because you impact somebody's lives by your encouragement and your words. So I'm always present when people speak to me. I do my best to be very present.
You've had a long journey through entrepreneurship. Where did it start?
It started when I realized nothing else I was looking at fit. That I was an anomaly. So let me throw it out. I am not an academic by any stretch. It when I went to high school, I did what I was told to do because I had to have a high school diploma. That's fine. And I have to say I bounced around from college to college because what my parents kind of said, "Oh, this is what you should do." I never really claimed that independence on in terms of trying to figure out what is it Janice wanted to do.
Right.
And at that time, I didn't really understand or even know what were my skill sets because I didn't really have any. But sometimes that skill set is just the natural ability to connect with people that
Mhm.
you wind up advancing and fine tuning in the workplace.
Absolutely.
And so the classic thing was I was a jack of all trades, and I said to my daughter when she said to me that she wanted to go to college, and I said to her, well, what do you want to do? And she goes, I don't know. I said, well, go find a job. Don't go, don't go, because my philosophy was two things will happen, and I speak from experience. You'll either find a job that you're passionate about and you love, which will lead you into following the education,
Right.
or you'll find something that you hate it so much it will force you to go to school and figure out where you want to get your
Exactly.
education. It's going to
Yes.
do one of the two. Okay.
Exactly.
And so that is where my entrepreneurship spirit began, which was I was never happy working for anybody. I always felt there was more. I couldn't tell you what that more looked like. I just felt it in my soul.
Right.
And then when I went back to college much later, um, and by the way, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Um, I realized I was given an opportunity to work on a project, and that's where I realized, hey, this could become something independent of. And yeah, and I started that with a partner at the time, and that's how I got into entrepreneurship.
Wow.
And yeah, no hard fast rules either.
Exactly. But let's go back to the foodpreneur journey. So you decide you want to get started. Who was the first person you told about Foodpreneur Lab? Do you remember?
Yeah, my very close friend and colleague Paula, because she has always trusted my judgment, always, never. And it's funny, she's one of quite a few people who know me who have always said, you have the ability to execute things. Like if you say you're going to do something, they've seen me do it.
Yep.
Regardless of how difficult it is, if I'm like a bull terrier. Sometimes once I sink my teeth into something, there's no letting go. So when I told her this is what I wanted to do, and she was, you know what, 100%, that was fine. I think when I went outside of that sphere, people in industry, and I remember exactly who I had my first conversation with, a lovely person by the name of Joanne. And I remember saying to her, I said, do you think this has legs? And she looked at me, she said, absolutely, absolutely,
Wow.
without hesitation. And that really gave me the drive, the fire, because in my head I was like, okay, let's do this without hesitation. I just and this is somebody I did not know prior, which was good because
Yeah.
there was not any obligation to give me false testimony or to say, oh yeah, I think it was a good idea. No, I wanted to hear, hey, listen, am I barking up the wrong tree,
Right.
or does this sound? And she was very honest and candid, and then once I knew that, I was like, okay, now let's do the due diligence and the work that's required to get into this.
What was the first year of the journey like of Foodpreneur Lab?
Oh, it was hell. I ain't gonna lie. I I listen. I I think that people, I got gray hairs popping out the side of my head. Okay, that I never had before I started Foodprenuer Lab. I ain't gonna lie to y'all. I'm gonna keep it real.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was difficult. I think people have to understand sometimes. Here was a woman of color coming into this space who's never really played in this space before, right? And all of a sudden, oh, she's coming up with this idea that, she's going to do this a little bit different or a little bit better,
Mm-hmm.
and some, I'm sure some said, well, who the heck does she think she is? But
Right.
here's a good thing. I don't know who said it. I don't really care who said it because I wasn't really paying attention. And this is why I always say it's so important that when you are an entrepreneur, you need to run your own race. You can be supported by like-minded people. They don't necessarily have to be entrepreneurs per se,
Mm-hmm.
but you really can't pay attention to what's going on too much beside you. And I always compare it to athletics, because as you know, I was an athlete, and run your own race really is, you don't watch what's, if you're in lane 3, you ain't paying attention to lane 1 or 2 or 4 to 7, right? You just know you got to get out there and do it. And that's one of the things I always equate running my business to athletics, especially being a runner. Because one of the things I loved about being a runner is that it was so challenging, because you never know if that day was going to be your personal best or if you had another personal best inside you. So every day you went in, your job was equated to the blocks. You get in, you settle in, and at the finish line you see it,
Yeah.
but you don't know today how fast you're going to get there. And that's how I look at what I do, because I always say, hey, today might be a crap day, but you never know what could happen tomorrow. And so that's been my approach. So when you ask, what it's like, yeah, it was help, but there were some good spots in there as well. But again, you know, that's the driving force. Disappointment can be a driving force. A no, I always say, is a not yet. I've
Mm-hmm.
never really settled with a no and kind of walked away and go, okay, we're done. No, I've always looked at it as no is a not yet, or no is temporary, becomes something better is coming. That's always been how I looked at things.
Yeah. A no is a no just for now.
Exactly, exactly.
Wonderful. What was the first big win you remember in the foodpreneur journey?
The first big win was when I had an institution come to me and wanted to partner with me.
Wow. And right out of left field?
Out of left field. They had heard about what I was doing, and somebody, you know how it is. Somebody told them, "Oh, speak to this person," and
Hmm.
the next thing I knew, I had an email. They wanted to speak with me. We met. We drove down. We set up everything. We were on the verge of signing a contract, and COVID happened.
Oh.
COVID happened. But hey, how did I look at that? That reinforced for me again. There's something there.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they wouldn't have wanted to start the conversation. Yes, the
Absolutely.
COVID was the downside to it, but I didn't focus on that because I had no. That's the other thing. I don't focus on things I don't have control over. So I didn't have control over COVID. I didn't have control over the fact that we kept trying to move the bar on the agreement, getting it signed to execute because we were there. But then that happened. So I shifted my focus and said, okay, well, here's the upside. They wanted to partner with you and do this. So take that and hold on to that as evidence of the potential of what could be. We still don't know what it is yet, right? We know we have something. So just hang on to that for now.
As you bring up the pandemic, I'd love for you in retrospect to look at Foodprenuer Lab pre-pandemic, during the pandemic, and now we're not totally out of it, but it's another phase. How have you been able to navigate through all the different phases of the pandemic, Foodpreneur Lab?
So again, I think it comes from mindset and how you look at things. So for me, pre-pandemic was, all right, this is great. People are looking to partner with us. We're going to be able to have such a broad reach. And bear in mind, and this is what's so funny too, Foodpreneur Lab had launched its first online courses in 2019.
Oh,
Okay,
okay, okay.
because I am very uh, uh, pro digital tech, and I was always about, okay, how do we reach people in rural areas that can't drive into the cities to do these courses? So I always saw the beauty of the internet in, oh my God, when was it? 1999, 97. No, 97, 96. I had the opportunity to work with somebody who I refer to this day as a maverick. And we used to work on digital content back then when the internet was still dial up. But we saw the potential of, schools being online, courses being online, and everybody thought, oh, yeah, you guys are out of the box. And so in 2019, I said to my colleague, I said, hey, let's run a bunch of online courses in the food space. Let's test it, pilot it for a little while, and let's see. And interestingly enough, I would say there was a 30% buy-in, 25-30% buy, which is ironic considering where we
Yeah.
are now,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And so I remember sessions where there would only be 2 people attending. And so because at that time, and again, we talk about, this is what happens sometimes when you are the maverick in innovation, you're so far out that sometimes, the best example I can give is Napster. Napster was ahead of its time,
Look, there's a
but
lot.
then
No, hold on. There's a lot of people watching. They go, "What the heck you talking
that
about?"
we're
But
talking about.
so
Okay, so thank you. So Napster was the first digital online music service
file
that
share.
you could.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's right.
Music.
That
Yeah.
you could download.
Yep.
You know, we're not going to get into the black market side of it. Just let's talk about the service.
Let's keep it above
Okay.
board. Okay, above board. All right. All right.
Exactly. And so that was a very maverick idea, but again, they were too far ahead of their time. And so people weren't as willing to adopt that platform yet. And then Apple came in and legitimized it, and here we are today. And so similarly, here we are trying to push online programming in 2019. Not a lot of takers, and so we said, okay, fine, we'll pull back and wait, and never actually relaunched it to the what we should have done. We should have just held firm in hindsight and just said, you know what, don't care, just keep running it. So we did that, and we had a decent buy-in. So pre-COVID, during COVID, it was interesting watching everyone else pivot around me, whether it was in production, whether it was in education, because COVID then shifted the focus, as we said, voluntold the sector that, listen, if you want to continue engagement, you have to shift online. And so there was the herding of everybody to online learning, Zoom meetings, you name it. And everybody was doing something online. You didn't have a choice, quite honestly. And so not only did it change the way we learned, it changed the way we purchased, it changed the way how we communicated, connected, disconnected.
Yes. Yeah.
Everything. And so our behaviors have now changed, but what it has done, and maybe a lot of people aren't even aware of this, it has raised our level of expectancy, which is now true to the phrase, I want it and I want it now. And so now we are in this cycle where we don't want to wait for anything. Like, hey, you want something on Amazon, I can have it here within 24 hours. And so that has now put on added pressure for all retailers, large or small, who want to give great service, fast service, but are now caught in the trap of, okay, supply chain, distribution, and the costs associated with all that, right? So yeah, that's where I've seen changes for Foodprenuer Lab in this space, pre-COVID and during COVID as well.
You are passionate about helping BIPOC women in this space. Are the challenges that they have come to you when Foodprenuer Lab started still the same today?
Yes, and my passion is BIPOC community. Women, yes, but the community in itself. Because one of the things, and I've spoken about this is, yes, Foodprenuer Lab is women led, but hey, we're not ignoring our men in this space either, because
Hmm.
they're equally struggling just as the women. So for
Yes.
me, it's a community, right? And so to answer your question, yes, same problems, um, same questions, which are, where do I go? How do I start? To whom can I speak with? Can you give me 5 minutes, 10 minutes? I'd love to have you as a mentor. Can you help me find a kitchen? And these are just generic questions of people who want to get their ideas and ambitions moving. It's not, they're not questions where I'd say, okay, well, let me go back and check my notes.
Right.
these are just these are just generic steps where people want to execute and aren't sure where, how, who, or what. So the need to provide all this is definitely there.
Yeah. I want you also to go a little bit deeper on some of the specific like the challenges that you've heard and you've been able to help. And I appreciate you seeing the BIPOC community, not just BIPOC women, because
Hmm.
the world has changed so much for the people that you're passionate in helping in the last 2 years. And in some ways,
Yes.
I think about it that the ball is moving further and further away from them.
Well, I agree, and that's my concern. I think where we are right now, we have an opportunity not to catch up, but to participate. There lies a difference. Catch up makes it sound like, okay, we're still decades way behind. And I would rather not view it from that lens. I would rather say, okay, you know what? Here's the opportunity to participate, because I can't go back and fill the gap of all the undeserved things that have happened to us. But I can make a difference in the time that I'm here and now. So I focus on where I'm at right now. And in doing that, um, I think it's important to have those conversations with other organizations as well, because they play a role. And so if if we want to ensure that we are securing our future, and that's, let's just call it what it is, it is about securing our future,
Hmm.
then we have to change some of our attitudes and behaviors. And what do I mean by that? We have to buy property, we have to invest, we have to build, we have to grow, we have to make, we have to create. this passive this passive behavior that sometimes we are guilty of, we have to now change. We have to now become active. So, one of my, I always call him my heroes that I have a lot of time and respect for, is Ryan from ACBN, where he talks about the think tank and the manifesto, and where are we going to be 10, 50 years from now, and who are we going to be, and how can we measure that strength in who we are? Because a lot of people forget how much we bring, or I shouldn't say they forget, they are aware of how much we bring to society. And how do we know that? Well, just look around you. Our paint strokes are in everything, fashion, the way we speak. I always say, when you take out our language and you start to see it on television, a commercial, that tells you, okay. Okay. And we see it all the time. So the question is, do we have something to contribute? Absolutely. Have we been given the opportunity to contribute? No. There lies the difference. And so when I talk about being passive versus active, we now have a choice. We can either say, okay, well, nobody invited me to the party. Well, then go have your own party. I'm
Hmm.
keeping it in its simplistic form. I'm not here to speak above anybody or pretend that, I have this broad language base. No, I'm just keeping it simple because I'm trying to let everybody understand that what we're trying to do on a whole, it's not rocket science. What we are doing is we're trying to take responsibility and we're trying to build something for us generationally. And this is the time now. We've received the funding, we have the experts, the knowledge exists, and we're willing to get together to create this. All the elements are there. Now we have to execute.
What do you feel is holding us back, if anything?
I don't think there's anything holding us back apart from the fact that we want to get it done. And so it's having the right people at the table. And when I say right people who are willing to help us move the needle. That's what right people are. It's not necessarily about, oh well, you have your PhD or you run a Fortune 500 company. We see people who have those who don't want to participate, not necessarily in our community, but in general. We need people who actually want to see things that are tangible and quantifiable. We can say, hey, in 2020, we didn't have a food innovation hub for BIPOCs. In 2024, we can now point to such a thing. And so I always go back to that biblical phrase, without a vision, the people perish. Mm-hmm. It's no different. That's what wakes me up every morning. It's the possibility. It's the vision of creating something that doesn't exist. And I look at that and I hold on to that because my colleague created this amazing allergen app. And I remember, in entrepreneurship, typical frustration, she said to me, she goes, I don't know if this is where I want to, if this is working for me anymore. And the first thing out of my mouth was, hey, listen, you're creating something that has no benchmark. That's the beauty of what you're doing. So go run your race.
Yeah.
Don't quit. Just keep it moving. Keep it moving. Keep it moving. And she did, and she's reaped the rewards of that. It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
What are the continuous barriers that the BIPOC community face when trying to get into the food industry? Because there's probably a lot of people out there that have great ideas.
Yeah.
But then reality strikes. And this is one of the things you're great that you can give that reality to say, this is the real deal.
Yeah. A lot of it is access to money. And I don't use the term funding, because when I use the term funding, people think it's free money. There is no free money to start a business. Let me just put it right out there. It will come in the form of a loan. It will come in the form of a hybrid loan and a grant. But when I look at the landscape that's out there, it's usually a loan. How does that become a barrier? Well, it's hard to borrow money when you don't have money. It's hard to borrow money when you don't have collateral.
You know what's interesting, Janice? I heard someone say something interesting the other day. It says, it's interesting, when it comes to our people, they'll give you a loan to go to school. And you know how many people have school debt?
Yes.
But they won't give many of us a loan to start a business.
No. And so, and this is where, not having that historical data, because they never bothered to collect any, right, is what is part of the impediment, I would say, because maybe if you'd loaned me the money and you had tracked the success of the businesses to those that you've loaned, then maybe it would be a lot easier borrowing the money, and again, there's different rules for different folks. That's just the ugly reality. I'm not here to debate that, yes or no.
Right.
But what I am saying is that it's hard to borrow money when you don't have collateral. Now, having said that, there are There are institutions that will give you starter loans of smaller amounts. You can start there, and some of them are not necessarily looking for a lot of collateral or any for that matter, but it's a start. So that's changed a bit more, or more recently, I should say, which is good. That's a positive. I'll take the small steps.
Sure.
One of the other barriers is having the spaces that support small scale businesses. And let me rephrase that, micro scale businesses. Because by definition, and this is one of my pet peeves, by definition, a small scale business is a business that earns $500,000 in revenue. Good luck with that. So it's micro. And, that's one of the things I've been advocating for. I keep saying, they say SMEs, which is small, medium enterprises, said you're missing a letter in the front, the other M, which is micro businesses. And the whole idea, if the stats tell us that there are more micro businesses than there are small businesses. So if that is the case, the argument is then that money should be going into micro businesses who want to become 500,000 revenue generating businesses. That's a great goal.
Absolutely.
But unfortunately, the way the criteria is built, and a lot of it is historical as well. I'm hoping that's going to change as we have more and more of these conversations. That there will be a shift where they will say, you know what, we have to acknowledge these micro businesses that are getting to small businesses. I mean, we come out of the womb as infants. We don't come out of the womb whole.
Right.
So if we keep that in mind, there lies the support. So, from that point of view, it's the definition that also needs to change, as well as not having proper spaces and facilities that can support micro businesses on the production side. We're seeing problems with that. That has caused serious stagnation in micro businesses. And what do I mean by that? So, for example, you go to the market and you have this great lemon, fat-free, healthy popsicle. I'm just using this as an example, and it's organic. It's all natural.
Sure.
And let's say the buyer from a large retailer comes by, sees your product, absolutely loves it, says it's fantastic, goes back. They come back to you and they go, hey, you know what? We have 50 stores. We wanna sample your product in 3 of those stores.
Right.
We're gonna need 5,000 units. Well, yay! But at the same time, it's crap. Because how do you scale from your market where you were only doing 100 in an igloo carrier, that you were sampling, to 5,000 units? There's a lot of space in between that.
Yeah.
And by the way, there's a lot of money in between that. So some would argue and say, well, why don't you take the PO number for the potential sales that you've just been given and leverage that? Yes, in an ideal world. But how many institutions are going to lend you that money up front to produce?
Yeah, very few.
Right? And then come back to the question of where are you going to produce it? So that is another problem. So, as we go through the path of, where you have the idea to actually where you get it into the store, it's peppered with problems. It's not just one, there are quite a few. And the sector itself has been plagued with those problems for the last 30 plus years. I did a market feasibility study on this because I was curious as to, okay, what are the factors that are playing such a significant role, only to find out that these are the same problems that existed 30 years ago, and the dial hasn't moved quite that much. But, there's been improvement.
Wow. I want to have some highlights. I know we talked before we went live. Share the people. A week ago today, you had an amazing event. Amazing event, which I'm still cussing out Roger Dundas at buyblacks.com about.
Oh, you outed.
I'm gonna out him live, yes, because Roger and I run to and say, Roger, you going? No, 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 no. I call him and say, how was your weekend? Yeah, Janice had a really good. I almost threw my phone out in the trees. Tell him. Well,
Yeah.
actually, there's a few events. Let's hold off that one. Let's talk about the show you went to at Metro Convention Center too.
Oh yeah, at the Enercare
Yeah.
Center. So we
So let's talk
participated. Well,
about.
actually, no, the Metro Center. Yeah, you're right. We
Yeah.
did the women's show. So we took a few of our participants that were able to showcase their products,
Yes.
and that was a great experience. And it was done for two reasons. It was to really showcase what we were doing, and more importantly, to give the participants the opportunity to engage with their um, existing consumers
Yeah.
or potential consumers. And for the scale participants who, as we said, they already had skin in the game, they had product.
Yeah.
It was really an opportunity for them to, make people aware of the products that they have and what they were doing. But for the start participants, that really opened the door for them because
Nice.
it gave them some insight in terms of what the potential could look like for their product, right? And it also allowed them to learn how important it is to engage with people when they come up and they start asking questions. And that's how you
Mm-hmm.
hone your brand story. That's where
Mm-hmm.
you create that connectivity. So we were able to just work with them and say, okay, this is what you're going to talk about. This is, and not to be shy,
Yeah.
to be proud of what
Shoot
you
your
have there.
shot, man. Shoot your shot.
That's right. That's right. And so the traffic at the Metro Convention Center for the Women's Show was just phenomenal. And then right after that, we went to the Restaurants Canada show, which was the first time we were there as a nonprofit. And again, we showcased the amazing products. And man, did we ever have a lot of people come to our booth. And thank you. And that was a proud moment for me because I'd been to the RC show many times, but very few times did you see that representation. You saw people there, but to the point where actually people commented this trip that, you know what, this is amazing. It's good to see more representation,
Mm-hmm.
especially as vendors, not
Yes.
as employees per se, as
Right.
owners,
Yes.
in that space. And so some of them were able to pick up contracts. One in particular picked up a contract with HelloFresh, which I'm thrilled
What?
about. Yeah, yeah, and
What?
some are in talks with other larger retailers. So again, it just proved my point that we 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 have something to offer. For me, that was a no-brainer. It wasn't like, maybe we no, we can compete in its simplest form. We can compete. So
Absolutely.
so then fast forward, then Juneteenth,
And Father's
the
Day.
Father's Day, Juneteenth block party. That was our first. That was Foodprenuer Lab's first event, standalone, in partnership and sponsored by Junction Brewery, who is now our partner. And that was mind blowing. And I'm so proud. We had 19 participants, I believe, who just blew the roof off the place. People were engaged. We had 300 people come through that space.
What?
And, in the middle and towards the end, people were coming up to me. So, can you put us on the mailing list to let us know when you're doing it again next year? And by the way, we are doing it again next year.
You
Yes,
better be. And I am
you
coming
heard
with
it
or
here
without
first.
Roger Dundas.
Yeah,
With or without Roger
yeah.
Dundas, I'm
So
coming. And I'm
yeah,
already I'm
so
already I'm putting my hand in to be a co-host.
there you go, there you go. So June 17th of 2023, save the
Wow.
date. And yeah, I'm thrilled. It was beyond my wildest visions because I've always focused on the education part. So to be
Mm-hmm.
able to to get them from the ideas and see the presentations and see the products and just watch them soar in that confidence and knowledge that, hey, I did this. This is me,
Yeah.
you know.
Give me a special moment from that event that you'll never forget. Because I know there were so many. Just give us one.
I would have to say it was through the entire thing of not only having the participants telling me how grateful and appreciative of what I have done for them, but the strangers who came to the event in support of it telling me the same thing, that they just love what we're doing.
Wow.
And for me, my participants, man, I just they're like my babies. I don't get to meet each and every one of them all the time, but when I do have that interaction with them, it's just the gratitude conversation that they share with me, because they just want me to know. Not because I'm asking, because they always say to me, goes, Janice, I just have to tell you, I'm so grateful. You've done so much. And the thing is, we've not just limited it to an online. We try to create experiences for them.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's extremely important,
Sure.
because
Yeah.
you have to get them in those scenarios so they can see themselves and operate and function in their scenarios
Live it.
after after Foodprenuer Lab and
Yes.
beyond. So
Yes.
for me, that's important. But yeah, I would say that was my highlight. And I took a moment and to just immerse myself into it, to appreciate, because sometimes that's the other thing. As entrepreneurs, we're so busy making things happen, we don't stop to smell the roses when we actually follow through. And so I remember my colleague said to me, "Why are you standing out there?" And it was just in front of the building. And I had gone outside because I just wanted to take it all in. Because when you have a vision and then when you actually see it happening,
Yeah.
it's huge.
Yeah. And what
It's
would have happened if
huge.
you didn't do that?
Exactly. And so I paused. The law of growth says you need to pause. And so I paused and I took it all in for a good half an hour, 45 minutes,
Nice.
and just watched everyone interact and talk and smile and eat. And the music was amazing. And yeah, people had a good time.
Yeah.
People had a great time.
My my main mentor tells me, celebrate your wins in real time.
Yes, yes, yes.
Even if it's a little win, celebrate it right then and right there. Don't care who's around. It's your dream, goal, and desire, so do not undervalue it.
Absolutely. And I remember when we were awarded the funding, I just shifted gears, went right into drive. That was it. And then I remember someone saying to me 3.5 weeks later, "Do you realize what you just did?" And I said, "Well, I've had this 3 years culminating and, marinating and working on
Yeah.
it." And they said, "But have you stopped
Yeah.
to?" And that's when I realized, I said, "Actually, no, I hadn't." And so I did. I did.
Good.
I did.
What the feedback you're getting now, or the attention you're getting now, is not what you got when you first came out of the blocks. What are the challenges? Or let me put it this way. Are the barriers from the big people, are they still there, or are they listening more to you, and are any of them backing it with action?
That's a great question. I think from my own experience, I am seeing more of a willingness to participate and partner. And it's interesting because if you were to look at it from a generational lens, it's the younger people out there that are in this space that's that don't hesitate and are like, yeah, let's do this. And that's what I find um, to be extremely exhilarating, is that they're not bogged down in the red tape so much. They see the opportunity. They see how it broadens the visibility, and they want to ensure that continually happens. And so it's a lot easier having those conversations. And not only that, the entrepreneurship sector is growing so much right now because of COVID. Everybody has pivoted. And so everybody has different ideas and approaches in how we sell to consumers or how we make consumers aware, and how innovative we are in the food ecosystem. So that's opened up all these other doors to create new opportunities and partnerships. Um, there are barriers there. There are always going to be. I just think that's just the nature of the beast in business.
Yeah.
But I am comforted by seeing more opportunities to work with others in the space, and I think over time we're going to be seeing more and more of that. Right now, I'm advocating, small businesses or micro businesses or nonprofits like myself, um, partnering with other organizations and corporations that have underutilized spaces that can
Big,
be used,
big,
because
big.
I think that is one of the quickest ways to create solutions that are bottlenecking our ability to produce and grow. And so I think given where we're at right now, meaning supply chain issues, stagflation, and everything else, it's a common sense approach. It's just a common sense approach. I would rather go to the government and say, hey, listen, I need $2 million to retrofit an existing building that maybe has a smaller organization in it who does something similar to what I do, and we can work together to get more people through it, because it's just sitting there, as opposed to asking for 10 million to build something brand new that now, you know, is it supporting community? And that's the other thing too. I, everybody's saying, grow local, grow local, grow local. Local has always been a staple behavior to us. Technology and our willingness to trade that off with bigger box stores, drive further out for something that is now going to significantly change, or is significantly changing, because of gas prices.
Yeah.
And so now we are looking to communities. So, when I lived in Dundas, Ontario, which had a population of 15,000 people, you walk down the street, you had the butcher, you had the baker shop, you had the health food store, you had the tailor. And that's what I loved about it. So I actually lived it, so I saw the benefit of it. Fast forward, 20 something years later, we're back to roots. We're back to wanting local. We want to know who the farmer is that's giving us our fresh produce. We want to engage in local made products. And so that creates jobs in the community. It creates more opportunities for community engagement as well, and for you to have a say. And so for me, that's not something that's new. That's something that's mandatory and is required now, given the state that we are, and rightly so. So it's going to be interesting, to see these different communities and opportunities they're going to create. I think there's a huge potential there for sure.
What is your message for non-melanated people when it comes to helping what you're doing? And then what is your message for the melanated people to help what you're doing?
So this has always been my approach. Um, people react to other people based on past experiences, right? And so if you have a bad experience with somebody that doesn't look like you, that's going to resonate with you. And so you're going to form an opinion of that person or from that experience. And I can't do anything to shape that. What I can do is I can have open conversation and I can try and connect with the other individual. And that has always been my approach. I am not going to change myself so significantly where I'm trying to put the square peg in the square peg because I'm a round peg trying to fit in a square peg. And that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what we have to remember is it's twofold. For my non-melanated friends, it's an opportunity to have some amazing conversations and tell them about our rich history and our culture and to invite them into that dialogue because they don't know. Um, one of one of the things I've come across is that some of my non-melanated friends have asked, "Is it okay to call me black?" They don't know. They don't, because we all have different interpretations of what's acceptable. So it can be difficult for them. It is a minefield. However, saying that, it's difficult for us as well because we've also had to do that. So what has been my approach? Just treat people how you want to be treated. it's, I'm not I'm
Yeah.
not gonna make it. I'm not gonna complicate it,
Right.
and that's my approach. If you're melanated, non-melanated, I just think melanated. I just look at, okay, how would I want to be treated? I want to be heard, so I'll
Right.
have the conversation. If you don't understand something, I'll help provide clarity. I'll help, and if I don't know, I'll say, hey, I'll get back to you. And if you've had that bad experience, I will acknowledge it and empathize it and say to you, hey, listen, it's not representational of everyone,
Good point.
right?
Yep.
And so maybe this is why for me my experience in this is a little bit different, and because I'm going in with an open mind. You can't be an entrepreneur with a closed mind, by the way. It won't work
Yep.
because it requires constant change, the willingness to pivot. That's the key word.
I would also add two other things: being curious
Yes.
and having resiliency.
Goes without having to be said, but yes, I'm glad because you have to be resilient, tenacious,
Yes.
tenacious. And
Where do
for those
you
who
where do
don't know,
you get your tenacity from, and your
well,
resilience
okay,
from?
that's a long story.
Okay, all right. We'll save that for part two. We'll save that for part
um,
two.
yeah,
We'll
I
save it
I
for
would
part two.
say, yeah, I would say, black sheep, and leave it at that.
Part Janice will come to the next year's event, 2023, and Janice will, when she's standing outside there enjoying it all. Can you give me the part two now?
Yeah. A little bit of that black sheep blood,
Yeah.
which is a good thing. So for those of you who have children, and it's so funny because for me this has been generational. I didn't understand where that streak came from, and then I noticed my daughter had it, and
Mm,
people will say it's a rebellious streak. But let me tell you something, that rebellious streak serves a purpose because what it is it is a strength that is a part of you that hasn't found its place to rest, where it can, like a seed, where it can be nourished and it can flourish. That rebellious streak, that tenacity, is what has brought me here
yeah,
today. So
exactly.
I don't want people to think, oh my God, this person in my life, this young child who's giving me such a hard time. It's not that. That is their way of expressing frustration. But once you channel that and they find their groove, their space, their purpose, they they use that same disruptive energy and they
Yes.
flourish.
Yep. Yep.
I just want to throw that out to those, don't lose hope.
Yeah.
There's always hope.
Right. Hey, the people that move forward these days, a lot of them are disruptors.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
disruptors. The Elon Musk disrupted the car
Disruptors.
industry.
That's right.
Jeff Bezos disrupted the online
Disrupt.
industry. Like
Yeah,
he
that's
first
right.
disrupted the book industry, and then he
Yes,
disrupted the online industry, on retail industry. Disruptors.
exactly. In our culture, we call it trouble.
Yes, or blank disturbers, right? Janice and
Exactly.
I know we go
And
back a bit, so we know
that
our time
that's
to say
that's
you're a blank disturber,
that's
right?
right. And I've been called trouble. People have said trouble way up to, and
Yes,
I'm saying,
right,
so it
right,
is what it is.
right. Exactly. So before we close it down, what is next up for Foodpreneur Labs?
Right now we have our first cohort that's due to complete their pathway in end of July. They've just finished doing some amazing videos, which um, fingers crossed we will have presented to showcase everyone, what their journey is about, their brand, a bit more information. Some of them will be participating in Caravana
Oh,
in
okay.
August, so I'm happy for them. But for us, we have a couple shows coming up in the fall, so we'll announce that.
Yeah.
And we have cohort 2 that we're focusing on, and we might have some surprises in store for Christmas. So I'll close it off with that.
Well, for our producer, if you can put up the contact information for Foodpreneur Labs on the screen, that'd be fantastic. There's the website address. They're also on Twitter and on Facebook. Janice, thank you so much for taking the time. I know that it's been a very hectic last
Hey,
thing from, doing the shows to being like almost every time I blinked, I saw you on TV. And Janice is a
yes,
lady. She's not. I remember months ago saying, "I can't stand this TV thing."
hey, yeah. I'm not a TV person, but one of the things I committed to was I will do whatever is required to support what we're doing.
Mhm.
And if that's what it takes and not what it takes. So I do it happily.
Well, Janice, again, thank you so much. You, your family, your team, uh, and I actually want to, just as we close out, give a shout out to Paula.
Oh, listen, I have to thank my team, Paula Cooper, Kala Lee, and Marie Fitrion, some phenomenal women that have just been such a huge support. They believe strongly in what we are doing. They are huge advocates for within the BIPOC community, and have always supported the vision and are integral, sorry, to the success of what we're doing. I couldn't have executed all this on my own, and so I, at every opportunity, I always like to give them a shout out because it's well deserved. So thank you for giving me that
Uh,
opportunity.
well, I know you can't do it by yourself, and if you are, you're missing out,
No,
right?
exactly,
Ble-
exactly.
Blessings to you. Well, I'm sure we'll be talking with the next day or something because we're chat a lot
Yeah,
during the week. Thank you for making.
absolutely.
Thank you for making and taking the time. Be well.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show, the home of Epic Conversations. And I'm the host of Epic Conversations 2020, Best Podcast News Award winner, 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. Also, I host the only online show in the world for dads and fathers that is sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care, also Dad Central, Canada's national fatherhood organization. And the name of the show is called The Dad Central Show. So it's Googleicious. We've done 2 episodes already, more to come. And like to say thank you so much for watching this live on the replay. If you want to catch me during the week, yes, I'm here 5 p.m. on Sunday afternoon. So just an FYI, next week's show will be a repeat because it is a long weekend and I want to take a little time off. I've deserved it. Whether you think I have or not, I deserve it. I'm giving it to myself. So we'll be running a repeat on next Sunday. The following Sunday, we're scheduled to have Ian Andre Espinay and David Click Cox. They are a part of a group, actually the leaders of a group, in regards to changing the face of the Canadian music industry, more representation of people of color. And I've known Ian Espinay for many, many years, and David Quick Cox has been on before. So they will be on 2 weeks from today. You can also catch me during the week, 9 a.m. Eastern Time, 6 a.m. Pacific on the Morning Vibe, which I co-host with Ryan Knight, who is the co-executive director of the Afro-Canadian Business Network. So if you're watching this live tomorrow, on Monday, we have Richard Miller, who is the founder of Keep Six, which is an organization that helps Black individuals who have been who exiting from the prison system to get them back up and running again. And we'll be talking about their collaboration with Universal Music. Yes, Keep Six has their own record label, and they're going to be collaborating with Universal Music in regards to growing that label. And then on Saturday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, we have something called State of Things with Aisha K. Staggers and Jill Jones. And they don't hold back in giving their takes on what's going on, especially socially, politically in America. So if you want to find out any information about all those things, wherever you're watching me now, or actually go to my YouTube page, The Dr. Vibe Show, subscribe to it so you get notified when these epic conversations happen. So we'll close out with this. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions, then aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. Remember to give yourselves grace. Don't just manage your time, manage your energy. And two last things. Thank you to BIA Media for the great production. And there's a potential announcement about something I'm speaking that I'm going to be involved with BIA Media coming up at the beginning of August. We're just going to leave it at that, but we'll keep you up to date. And then finally, I'll leave you with this word. A tree without roots is a block of wood. God bless. Peace be well. Keep the faith. Take care, everyone. Walk good.